Thank you. All right, well, let's get started here. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Pablo, and I'm the Executive Program Director at Latvia Urban Ministry. This is the first year in many, many years that I will not be directly chairing or directing Jubilee Christmas. But our new person, Allie Parker, who I see she's on the call, but I know she's driving, so we won't see her. She starts next Monday. I didn't want to wait until next Monday to start this conversation, and thought this conversation was a little bigger than even what Allie's expected to take care of. But once she starts, she'll be communicating more with her. I don't really have much of an agenda, except to remind you that the website does have a host site portal. If you go to the LUM website for Jubilee Christmas, which is lumserve.org/Jubilee, and go to the bottom and click on host site portal, that's where we put all the information that you all would need as you coordinate Jubilee Christmas. And I'll be putting the notes for this meeting on there, as well as the link to this recording when we're done. So I'm admitting more people, so we'll wait for those people to join us. Okay. I think I've admitted everybody now. I'll just have to keep one eye on that list. So it's 18 months now that we've been dealing with the pandemic, almost to the day, and we still don't really have any idea what we're doing. Good news is, and correct me if I'm wrong, last year was really big success. It was a lot of work, but we did it. It was all curbside, and there were some downsides to that. Obviously, we didn't get the fellowship. We didn't get to interact with the families as much as you'd like to, and some of that interaction happened sort of organically when you were wrapping presents and picking toys and just having conversations throughout the day. So that we miss. I'm not sure we can get back to that, and I think that just a quick glance of the surveys doesn't seem like you all are ready to get back to that 100% yet. So where do we go from here? Anybody want to take a stab at offering a suggestion of how do we approach this year? I'm sure you don't want to hear me talk the whole time, so I'll just pause. And I've muted you all, so if you're going to talk, you got to unmute yourself. Go ahead.
I don't know if I have an overall sense of things, but one thing I was thinking about today, and a concern I have, is that with supply chain shortages and shipping problems, that it's going to be really important to get names early. Because if, we know we have a lot of people who order on Amazon or other things, or the stores could be sold out. And so we've really got to think early, because, there's a lot of things that just aren't available right now.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I didn't even think that far down the line, but we're running into that in almost every aspect. The one thing we do have now is all the PPE is finally available, the hand sanitizer, the paper towels and all that. But I've been waiting, I think, 7 months for a wireless access point, which is same thing as a router in your house. They just can't find the materials for it. And I've heard that across the board with things. So good point. At this point, I'm not sure how much quicker I can get you the names. But we certainly can tighten it up a lot.
They had on the news tonight, this company that gets like that, some dolls and different things. The shipping containers are like quadrupled and they can't even get it here. It's like some really popular dolls and toys. It's all made in China and they're behind, and they say it's going to be a nasty Christmas trying to get stuff and order it because they're not going to have it.
Right. Yeah.
And it's going to be more expensive.
Well, the only consolation there is it's going to affect everybody in the country, not just us. So, we'll just have to do the best we can, but I think the point being, we need to get the names to you a little bit earlier, and see if we can get those lists to you earlier as well. Is anybody, let me ask you this, is anybody ready to go in person 100%? Is anybody?
This
Yes.
is Maggie from St. John's.
Hello.
We have not made any decisions.
Mhm.
We have discussed maybe doing something on site, but very, very limited.
Mhm. Yeah.
Surprisingly, Father Roland at St. Mary's has given us the go-ahead to do in person, as long as as long as our guests wear masks and our volunteers wear masks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so and we won't be serving food. We won't have refreshments.
We're not either, and we won't wrap. If we do that, we'll just give the wrapping supplies.
Yeah, this is Beth Dana from Our Savior, and I'm kind of holding off, but I would like for the parents to be able to come and pick out their toys, whether we, appointment or whatever, stagger the people in the building, but it would be nice. And especially this year, last year, we tried to get more specific suggestions. And obviously this year with the supply chain, it would be tougher to get exactly what the parents want for their child. And, we pre-bundled everything, but it would be nice for them to be able to at least come in, look at the toys, pick it out themselves. And this year it might be more important than ever because they might, it's hard to say, but I think we kind of waiting to see how the numbers go locally, but I'd like to be able to have them to come into the building and pick out their own toys.
Pablo, I'm from Connection Point, and this is our first year doing this, and we're ready to do everything in person as well.
Oh, okay. Great. Anybody else?
This is Allie Parker.
Hi.
This is Allie Parker. I am driving, so I'm sorry if you can't hear me. Pablo, you and I can talk on Monday about getting assignments to families maybe a week earlier, maybe still in October instead of November, and that may help our host sites.
Okay. I like that ambition.
It would be helpful. Last year, we had the surveys of the parents for ideas for gifts. And if we could do, even if it may not necessarily be an exact gift, but at least ideas of what their children are interested in, that was really helpful. And it's really helpful if we are kind of doing this, and we may have to do it curbside again anyway. So that would be helpful.
Okay.
I would say, Pablo, that that was the one thing our congregation loved, was being able to to go out and look for specific things as opposed to kind of shooting in the dark. I mean, and I like that you kind of preface, and I don't know how much of a pain in the rear that was last year, but to have that list was really nice, and just letting the parents know that we may or may not be able to get specific ones, but I thought the parents were really good about saying, this one likes Disney and this one likes, so that we can at least get in the ballpark as opposed to specific gifts. But we were really in favor of having a more specific gift, a more specific list for each of the families. So that's my input. And as far as in person or not, that is debatable. But at this point, we're planning to not do in person.
Pablo, did you have feedback from the families, their response? Were they in general pleased with being presented the gifts and the content of what they received? Was the feedback? We didn't get any surveys last year.
It was online, right? Yeah. The feedback was all very positive. But, you know, I don't know if they had enough time to really know what they got or got a reaction from their kids. But from the standpoint of just it happening and them getting something, they were generally good feedback. And if there was any negative feedback, it had nothing to do with you all.
Yeah, I kind of agree with everybody. The lists were amazing, and we only used an Amazon wish list. And because we had so much information about what the kids liked, like just different categories, we could pick 3 or 4 things in the category. And then when something was out, it was very easy to find something that kind of fit in there. So
Okay.
I think the list was amazing.
Great. Wendy, you've been trying to jump in.
Yeah, I have a question. If some of the churches are only doing curbside and some of the families get to go through and pick present, is that going to cause problems, you know, at the end of Jubilee that, hey, this family got to go pick and this family just got handed based on what we got a list of likes? That's my concern.
I mean, it's a valid concern, but the only time we've ever had those kind of complaints are or just feedback from the families is when what they're getting is really not similar, not whether or not the experience is in person or curbside, although last year was the only time we've ever done curbside. You know, Jubilee Christmas has never been that you all did it the same. Everybody in this Zoom chat does it differently, even pre-COVID. So I'm comfortable with you all doing, you know, checking with your church elders, leaders, and finding out what's acceptable, and you determining what you're comfortable with and going with that. I see a lot of you probably going to end up doing a hybrid where maybe you do shop for the big things in advance and have that packaged up, but maybe have stocking stuffers and other things that they can go through and pick. And Doris, your church has done that for years, where they pre-shop, they have a table, they walk to the table, they have all their toys, but then there's enough choice that they can go out and pick other things like books or clothes, or I don't know what you give them options for. So yeah, I think curbside's going to be okay. In person, I don't know that you'll be able to do 100% in person. Little curious why we wouldn't do food, because I don't think there's any danger in that, but that's hard to convince people that you really can't catch anything from food that you couldn't catch pre-COVID. So if you were serving the food properly, but I understand the social aspect of that too.
Yeah, Pablo, I think that's it. It's that social aspect.
Yeah.
And it keeps people in the building longer.
Yeah.
And if we're trying to minimize exposure.
Now let me ask you this: Would you consider requiring vaccination cards for the one adult that shows up?
We discussed that, and we have a couple of school nurses who are in our church, and they both shook their heads and thought there's just no way you want a part of that, because, you know, they had the stories of trying to get people, you know, of getting people vaccinated and, you know, at the door, that we thought it was way too much hassle to try.
Okay.
And my daughter just had COVID, being fully vaccinated. The vaccination did its work, and that was just 3 days of, you know, being a bad cold, but she did positive and out of the book. So that isn't even necessary. Even if you're fully vaccinated, it still could be an issue.
Yes, and I really don't want to get into any of the science of this, because we're going to have 40 different opinions. So, but
the other thing,
the reality is, if you have a vaccination card, which, I mean, you go to New York City, you can't go to a museum or restaurant a Broadway play without showing a vaccination card at the door. So it's possible.
Are we discussing vaccination cards for our families or for our food preparers?
Both, I would say. I mean, are you gonna do, well, it's totally up to you. But I just throw that out there because it is a controversial topic, I guess, or something that would be another hurdle. I'm just wondering where you're all at with that.
This is Maggie again. We have not discussed that, but my personal thought on that is that we would not consider vaccination cards. That becomes something that would limit people. It's not welcoming, and that goes against our mission. So my gut is saying no.
Okay.
This is Sue Davis from Holy Trinity, and we don't require vaccination cards of our congregation members, and it just seems like that would be difficult to ask it of guests that are coming in. So we probably will opt for either another drive-through or maybe a walk-through. I like the idea of the hybrid. It was good to hear that has happened before and might be a good option for us.
Are you,
So
how many, go ahead, Alex.
So I have a bachelor's degree in anthropology. And so speaking from that perspective, although the vaccine is free, there is still a barrier of access for a lot of the people that we serve just in order to get to a vaccine location. So I think if we are able to provide PPE, maybe if you do decide to do in person and following state and local guidelines require masks and be able to provide that, I think that may be a little bit more welcoming than requiring vaccination cards.
And let's pause here for a moment, and because I'm sure if there's anybody on the line that's never done Jubilee Christmas before, we probably are way over your head now. So let's back up a little and give you a little bit of history of what we went through last year. Prior to COVID, we really didn't concern ourselves with much more than, food prep guidelines were the only things that really the health department was getting involved in. But last year we had a small team of people, and Maggie was a part of that group, and so was Jada. And I don't see Elizabeth. Are you there, Elizabeth? Maybe not. But we read everything that was available to us from the CDC, the state health department, and the county health department. And I think we have probably one of the best guidelines for doing a curbside event written anywhere. And that's ready to go. So if you want to follow it, and there was no wiggle room last year. You had to follow the guidelines or you weren't participating. This year, I feel like you've all had 18 months of this, and certainly we're 10 months after last year's, that we've learned a lot, and I kind of trust you and the people in your church to decide what you want to do. But that is a fallback if you want to go really strict curbside with a lot of PPE, wearing shields and all that. We've got that written. What the challenge is to see, how far are we going to go? And I don't think I need to referee it too much, except if there's a church that would get reckless with it, which I don't think any of you would do, but I think Lum would have some exposure there, and I'd have to step in and say, if you're going to allow people in without masks, without vaccination cards, you better be pretty strict with the hand washing and the social distancing and those sort of things. And train your volunteers the same way. I think the whole country has gotten a little bit lax in the last month or so. And I think we need to, for an event like this, and this isn't the only event that we're doing this with, the Thanksgiving dinner will also be scrutinized, that we'll have to go above and beyond what you're normally seeing, because we're putting these families in your hands for a day. So That being said, does anybody who's never done Jubilee Christmas have any basic questions, or do we need to back up a little for you and give you some more background? I'm scanning the list here, and please, and I'll take this moment to remind you all to put in the chat your name and your organization so I have a good attendance list. Carl, Jim, any concerns or thoughts?
I'm new with all of this, so I'm sort of at the point where I'm just trying to learn and see what's going on. The biggest problem that we're having at our church, of course, is we're not getting people coming in yet. So I don't know how much we can contribute, what we can do at this point. So I'm really just trying to gather information so I can piggyback.
Yeah.
The church. I don't know if the timeline may be passed to actually host, but maybe we may be partnering or even volunteering at another site with whoever we can get. So but this is kind of a learning experience for me.
That's a good point. Are any of you concerned about getting enough volunteers to pull it off?
So Pablo, you know, of course, pre-COVID, minus all the, you know, COVID protocols, which I feel like our church has done an exceptional job on doing that. What is, I mean, what's just a rough idea of what that in-person event looks like? I mean, basically, you're the same people that we've been buying for. They're going to come in and have an experience where they're able to wrap everything, and of course, anything outside of that. I mean, that's the basic gist of it, is that they get those gifts, they wrap them, and then there's also some other, you know, options, I think, right, from, you know, that they can choose from, stocking stuffers or whatever. But that's the basic idea, is that they're coming in, getting the gifts, wrapping them, getting some extras, and out the door again. I mean, is that kind of like the end goal? And then everything else is whatever else you kind of add to make it an event, or is that kind of a rough idea of that?
Yes, I think pre-COVID it was a wonderful program. I mean, you invited parents in who really cared about their kids and were thinking about Christmas early. They have to register by mid-October. So a parent that's thinking about Christmas and needing help in October is a pretty good parent, in my opinion. But they would come in and they'd be treated very, very special. Some would get a full meal, some would get a snack. They'd all get assigned a host, so they didn't feel lost at any point in the day. They were really well taken care of. The churches that had, I'd say, more than 25 to 40 families were doing more of a shopping room. And the parents would go in that room once for one toy and then sit down and wait for their next turn to go for the second toy, and then wait for their third toy. And in the middle, there were snacks and wrapping and just conversations and things like that. So that all that is kind of missing from what we did last year. But we were just, I think, grateful that we were able to do something. Our numbers were lower. We did about 800 in 2019 family-wise. We did about 550 last year. I think a lot of that had to do with not being able to do Jubilee Christmas 2 and 3, which is another whole explanation. But yeah, I think every church did their own special thing, which is a beautiful part of Jubilee Christmas as well. And to be able to invite someone to your facility and have them intermingle with your members and just feel loved and taken care of. And it's never been about the best Christmas ever. It's just been about having Christmas at all. In addition to the toys, there have been books and outfits and winter clothes and baskets full of household items and baked goods and cookies, and some do big toys, one per family, like a bicycle, some don't. So every church does it a little differently. Every family gets a food card, so they have some money to spend on Christmas dinner, and Last year was the first year we did a meat card as opposed to just handing them a ham. We gave them an additional $10 to buy whatever meat they wanted for Christmas dinner. Kids under 13 got the 3 toys. Teenagers, so 13 and to 18, would get a gift card. I think that's about it. Did I miss anything? So there,
Pablo, this is, oh, I'm sorry. This is Twyla from Christ Church, Christ United Methodist. We, after our guest arrived, we checked them in, and then their host or hostess is waiting for them. And then they were treated to a continental type breakfast. And then we went into our sanctuary. And at that point, usually our minister would welcome them. We would sing Christmas carols. We would talk a little bit more about Jubilee as a whole, end with prayer, and then we dismissed and went in. So we just added that little touch to ours.
Yeah.
In response to Carl, you're saying that you haven't had as many parishioners come into the church. We're kind of over that. Last year also, we did not have many people coming into church for church services. And we addressed that by creating a Jubilee website. So in our parish bulletin, which was online and in person, they could go to a website and see the list of gifts and toys and choose what to purchase. And they chose to Amazon order it, so they didn't physically have to go into a store to buy it. That offered them that out also to minimize their exposure outside when everybody was so locked down. So we're debating again. We did the tree ornaments, like a third of our ornaments were on the tree. A third of the ornaments were on the online Christmas list. What did we do the other third? I think, the other third, we put the other third, Central Catholic high school, those students also contribute. So through those 3 outlets, we had a lot of gifts given. And then we do inventory on Thursday before Jubilee, and we check off all the toys, gifts that have come in. And then what wasn't contributed, we take the cash that was donated and go out and buy and fill those gaps on Thursday night and Friday day. And that way, all the wish lists were fulfilled by doing it that way. I don't know if that would help anybody, that information.
And we will, this meeting is an extra meeting, but typically the October meeting is the time when we kind of share what everyone's doing and make sure that there's a little bit of equity there. No one's going too much and no one's going too little, so that we don't have issues after the fact, which we typically don't, but it's good to have a discussion too about, what ideas people have and what things have worked for them. And that's changed a lot of the direction of Jubilee Christmas over the years.
Pablo, do you have any idea on what the overall need is in the community?
Yes, it's going to be huge. It's going to be great. Yeah. We've not seen a decline in really any service that we offer. So I'm guessing, and we've gotten questions already from families calling to make sure their address is right and when am I going to get my invitation and things like that. So I think we'll, you all determine the number of families, and we'll need that probably in early October when we do the covenant. But I don't think we'll have any trouble filling it right away.
And are you thinking at least trying to do like a Jubilee too?
I have the facility reserved. For those of you who don't know what Jubilee 2 and 3 is, years past, after your event is done at your site, the surplus toys would come to me, and we would have a gym. The gym we use is Oakland High School, which is in downtown Lafayette, across the street from Salvation Army and LTHC. And we would take those surplus toys and organize another Jubilee event. Like as soon as the stuff was coming in, we'd start sorting it, and we would sign up an additional 50 families and have plenty for those 50 families. Then we were even doing a Jubilee 3, where we were in the past comfortable doing another 25 to 50 families with Jubilee 3. So the families that are registered for 2 and 3 are told in advance, Jubilee, Christmas is full, but we have this other opportunity for you. The only thing they don't get is the food card for the family and the teen card for the teenager. But they typically get the meat cards. Churches have donated that in the past. They've gotten cookies, because I'll also take the surplus cookies and replate them and give them out. And there's been plenty of stuff. And some of you have worked it, and you could attest to the fact that it's sort of obscene on some level how much stuff we have left over. But that's been a way to get 75 more families in, and also make sure the toys are staying in this community and not going somewhere else. So I've got the facility reserved, and we're planning on doing it, and we'll just see. Those families who are signed up for 2 and 3 are also told that there are 2 other programs in town, and given the option to sign up for those instead of ours.
So Pablo, you said prior to last year it was about 800 plus.
Mm-hmm.
How many families was that? Families or
that was families? So last year was about 1,500 children, and with the 800, it increased it to maybe about 1,800 children.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, as somebody that has volunteered for Jubilee 2 and Jubilee 3, I will tell you that hosting them, that it's amazing, and they said it's better than any of the other programs in town. So they'd still rather be in our 2 or 3 than with the Salvation Army or Faith. That's just, they love it.
And we honestly, to be honest with you, we're not giving them more than what you're giving them. We don't want it to be more attractive than your event. We limit them to 3 toys. Maybe we'll add a book or an outfit or a game for the whole family or something like that. But we do limit them. So yeah, I missed that last year. I think that was, but when you're shopping for individual kids, though, I'm guessing the number of surplus toys might decrease.
That's exactly what I was thinking, is if we're doing specific toys, then there may not be the surplus that we've had, although you always have the donations that just come randomly in. Did you have those last year? Well, I guess you did a little bit, but not.
And big churches, let's see, who are my big churches? Like St. Mary Cathedral, St. Tom's. Are St. Tom's here? First United Methodist, are you here? Those are the ones that would have the shopping rooms. They would look at the ages of the kids they had, but they wouldn't call the families, because they were, 2 of those have 40 families. So they would just fill a room with toys and tell parishioners to bring in all kinds of stuff, and they'd go shopping. And of course they would have twice as many toys as they needed. And we gladly took them and used them for Jubilee 2 and 3.
One thing
Go ahead, Wendy.
One thing I've already done is I've already put it in our bulletin, and I just gave them categories of what we need, like a sports equipment, whatever. And I said, please buy, because I can match it. And what doesn't match on our list, I know I can get it to you. So that might be a way to ask your people to still buy, especially on that shortage, because there's a lot of categories you can easily match when the kids come through.
Yeah.
Well, and I know we only do 14 families between 3 churches, but we still allowed them to shop. And what we do is we do gift tags, but we'd print 4 gift tags per child age range. And then that 4th toy would go for Jubilee 2 or 3.
Right.
So we always ended up with at least an extra 20 25 toys that could go to Jubilee too. So that's one way to do it. You could just ask the churches to do an extra one per child so that we can cover Jubilee too.
Is there?
Well,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, what I like about having the surplus is that it gives, especially when there's shopping, it's really nice to have extra toys, because there's nothing more frustrating than getting to the end and there's just not, there's just a slim picking. So, so yeah, we've always liked it. We always have gone to get some surplus from Lum a couple days before, just so that there's a lot to choose from, and then we take whatever's left back to Jubilee 2 or 3.
Yeah, I think one of the skills that I certainly have gained in the last 18 months is being able to have 3 or 4 different plans and being flexible and just moving forward with whichever one works the best and keeps everyone safe, which is great. And that's probably what we're going to have to do this year, because who knows, there might be some, I don't know, some rainstorm that gets rid of all the diseases and we could just go back to normal in a couple of weeks. But I don't foresee that happening, but I think the hybrid method, and we need to be creative like we have been the last 18 months and think, what's that hybrid look like? Do you pick 2 toys per child and let them shop for 1? Do you let them walk through? Maybe it's a spacing issue and you have it, if you've got a church, and I'm thinking Central has a great church for this, and actually Connection Point. You walk in one door, you shop at tables, you walk out the other door, and you're moving people through and keeping them in their cars maybe until they're ready to come through. But that adds a little bit more human contact than you had last year. But I'm also sensing that some of you are ready to do everything but food and wrapping, and doing social distancing that way, which is cool.
So how did you do the wrapping? You just give them a certain amount of wrapping paper and.
Oh, Jim, it was done differently everywhere. I think St. Mary Cathedral has a wrapping station with some Boy Scouts. Is that right? So they would bring their toy over there and they would wrap them for them?
No, the Boy Scouts are in charge of our wrapping paper. They have a station, and then each host and guest would go get wrapping paper, bring it back to their table. But they were the supply station. The Boy Scouts were the supply station.
Decades ago, it was a solution to the downtime between waiting to go back into the room to shop for your second or third toy, that you put wrapping paper on the tables, or they would go pick wrapping paper, bring it back to the table, and that little tiny community of 8 would just get to know each other really well, shopping, wrapping, eating. Yeah. I think that answered your question.
Pablo,
Yes.
Retta just put this fact. I mean, even though our pastor has allowed us to host 25 families, we've got to check with our volunteers. We may not have enough volunteers that are comfortable coming. So that might shut us down and have to do the hybrid or.
And honestly, that's been probably one of the biggest problems Lum has had, is that we have not had any volunteers come back to the shelter in 18 months, which is a huge hardship for that.
Yeah.
Plus we're doing more, we're doing hand washing outside and all this other stuff. And even the Good Samaritan program, we do the financial assistance. Most of those folks are retired and they don't want to take a chance. So, so you might want to get a jump on that and see if you could get people to commit, and see if they're comfortable without, pressuring them too much, to see if you've got enough crew to do in person.
Is there kind of a rule of thumb as far as how many volunteers you kind of need per family, kind of a thing?
Well, it starts with 1 volunteer per family.
Okay.
And to clarify, we only allow 1 adult to attend per family. So each church, and correct me if I'm wrong, would have at least 1 member of the church be their host for the entire time they were there. So if you had 40 families, you'd have to have 40 volunteers minimum. That doesn't count what's going on in the kitchen, what's going on at check-in, what's going on at checkout, if you've got people moving toys back and forth to cars. It's a really cool opportunity to engage a lot of people in your church pre-COVID.
So we get a lot of large families, as you know, at St. John's. When you have 5, 6, 7 kids in a family, we make sure each of the hosts have some kind of Sherpa to help with the carrying of the gifts. And I mean, they need it when you have those larger families.
And downtown, you may get people walking to your facility, not thinking that how are they going to get the toys back home too.
Yeah, we had somebody walk over to Good Shepherd last year.
Or they're hopping a bus, and so, and those are the things you need to find out in advance, because you'll get your list of families by the first week in November. So you'll have a month to kind of contact them and see where they're at. Some churches don't offer rides. Some do, some offer childcare, some do not. It really is a mixed bag of what's going on. Any other questions? Of those of you here present, first of all, don't forget to put your name and your organization in the chat so I can have attendance. But is anybody pulling back a little this year? Or are you gonna try to do as much as you did last year? Twyla?
Pablo, Christ United Methodist is probably going to pull back a little bit.
Okay.
We at this time are opting to go nothing in person, nothing. Most of our volunteers are elderly or at least much older people. We want to for sure keep them safe. We have in the past done complete outfits. We've done underwear, socks. We may not be able to do that this year. So we are trying to put that together. But it may be a reality for us. We will still host, but it just may not be as grand as it has been in past years.
So the issue is more volunteers, not financial?
I think we have a little bit of both. I don't know if Carol is still on or not. She would better answer that than myself. I know attendance is still, our attendance numbers are not what they were pre-COVID yet. So how many people would really want to be involved in Jubilee is a guess. But just from little conversations that Carol and I have had, it may be time that we have to scale back a little bit this year.
Okay.
So we're definitely, I mean, I'm 98% sure we're going to do curbside only.
Okay.
Our people, our guests did not seem to mind last year. It really, really went well. People were on time. We didn't have the social aspect of it, but given the year that it was, we thought it was pretty successful.
And it wasn't zero social. I don't want to imply
No,
that.
no, not at all.
I saw a lot of happy faces and conversations in the photos that were coming through. People rolling down their windows and, conversing that way. I think that's fair. Keep in mind though, that there might be some new churches that haven't done anything with Jubilee that might be willing to come and help you with not only volunteers, but resources. And it's a great way to start Jubilee, is not to actually host it the first year. And I think Wendy, you went through that. Where do I see Wendy anymore? They partnered, and Maggie's had partners for years at her church. It's 3 or 4 churches. Don't you have at your site?
No, we just partner with Good Shepherd.
Good Shepherd. But who has Brown Street? Is that Bethany? Brown Street United Methodist? I know Bethany has a few partners as well. But anyway, those are some options. I wouldn't, I appreciate you being cautious about what to expect, but donors have not gone away at Lump, just volunteers. We've actually had more generous donors, I hate to say it, than in the past. And, you know, financially, we're right on board where we were last year and the year before, keeping, you know, our services going. So, and I think there's been a mention of, so what you'll get is a parent will fill out what their kids want for Christmas, realistically, but then the churches went ahead and did, quite a few of you did an Amazon wish list that you directed your members to. So all they had to do was sit down at their computer at home, buy something on Amazon, ship it to your church, and boom, you know, they were engaged and they were participating. Is there anybody else that thinks they're going to scale back?
I just, Pablo, you asked for questions earlier. I'm sorry. I just started to talk and then I heard you say, I think, well, first of all, to answer your question, I think that we're not scaling back as far as how many families we're taking. But unfortunately, this year, I am not going to be there the day of. So I'm going to be planning up until I've have a commitment this year. So I think for that purpose, we're probably not going to go full volunteer-ish. So that's probably why we're gearing more towards curbside. But my question to you is, are you planning to do what you did last year with the, well, I guess my first question is, are the participants going to be only signing up via, did you do it a website, or how did you have people sign up last year? Because you didn't have any in person, right?
No, it's going to be all online, but we're going to, so the way it works is a postcard went out. I have no control of when it goes out. I just did it and got it ready. So it either went out yesterday or today to all the families that are in our database, which certainly are not all the families in the community that need help. But that gets us started, and they've been directed to an online form. And that's just to register. Once they do everything they need to do to get properly registered, then we direct them to that wish list form for their kids. We're going to be opening it up to people beyond just our current clients on Wednesday, October 13th. And they're still going to do it online, but we're going to staff, we're going to be in the office, and we're going to staff the phones so that if people have trouble with the technology piece, or they just have questions, we'll help them. And of course, if families don't have Wi-Fi or don't have computers, we would allow them to come into our office and fill out the form on their own, or we would do it over the phone with them and just input it as they give us the information. So that's kind of where we're at now.
Okay, and if you need help with that, you know I love doing that, so I will come and help you. And if you need a speaker.
And honestly, the phone part was awful. So I never want to go back to just phone. The in-person part worked okay, but that still was, it was, I don't know, organized chaos is the best way to, I mean, it was an exciting, exhausting night, but it wasn't, you know, if we could do online forum, I'd do that in a flash, but we have to make sure we're accommodating people so that we're not, you know, no socioeconomic bias of who's got the best Wi-Fi and all that. We got to make sure we're accommodating everybody.
Right. Okay. All right. That takes care of my questions.
Yes, and I'm not even going to ask if you want the wish list form, because I got that loud and clear at the end of last year that you guys love that, even if you didn't use it. It was good to just know, you know, because I mean, buying for you may think it's easy buying for an 8-year-old girl, but that girl may like things that you don't think girls like, and vice versa. And we're getting more and more kids that, you know, thank goodness, don't fall into those stereotypes. So any other, how about new people that think they're ready to jump in? And you don't have to answer. I'm not going to put pressure on you or publicly shame you. Or do you have any questions that might help you bring it back to your church to decide. Unmute Carl, if you're gonna, I don't know if you were talking or not.
Oh, no, I was just kind of thinking, that's pretty much explains where we are now, but I sent some feelers out to start some conversation between our board members to get the temperature of our group and see how, but my initial feelings is that we probably will probably try to volunteer and help out another site that might be shorthanded or something like that. That's probably how we'll probably get involved this year, to find out how it goes. And then we would like to plan to host maybe in the future, but we want to get started slowly.
Yes. Yes, and there are certainly churches that do 10, 15 families. And then there's some that do 40, which is.
Yeah, I think that's my biggest question, Pablo, is just trying to get a feel for what's a good commitment, for a church our size and that kind of thing. I don't, I'm guessing. I have no idea though. I think that's probably one of my bigger things, is just kind of starting from there so that we can start to figure out, how many volunteers and all that kind of thing. So.
Yes. And we've got both, the two extremes are the church that's blessed with the most beautiful facility, but not a big congregation and not a lot of resources to spend on families. And then the ones that have the resources and very generous members, but are struggling with a tight facility.
I think we're kind of, we're kind of blessed with both. We have, I know that when we present this to people, they'll get really excited about it, especially with, I really like the Amazon wish list thing. I mean, that you just can't get any more simple than that.
Yeah.
Everybody can do that. And, but we've been, our volunteer base is doing pretty good. So I'm thinking, hey, it's time to leverage that blessing and say, come on, let's go. But I don't have a grid for where do we start? What's a good jumping in point?
Well, and we could, another option too is that if you wanted to host this year, I could plant a few veterans at your church to help you. I know there's staff that would love to be there just to say, this is how you do it, and kind of coach you through it too.
That would be
done that before.
Fantastic. That'd be a huge help.
Yeah,
and if you look at all of these people here, we're all pretty good, and we're more than willing to step in and help you. I know I personally partner with another church, and they're hosting this year, so I'm available if you ever want somebody to chat with about it. It's an amazing event. It's one of the best, the most magical in town, and there's a lot of need this year. So if you can financially afford to do it, I would be more than happy to put in the hours to help you get there.
Yeah, it really is. I think we get so much more out of it than the families do. It's really just a day that gives you so much joy and so much energy and so much hope, because you could tell that, they're very grateful, number one, but they also, this light bulb goes off in their head that it's like, oh, I'm going to be able to be the hero on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
And my kids won't even know how this happened, and they don't need to know. Whereas if you do Shop for a Cop, which is a great program, the child is going with the cop and realizing that mom and dad aren't buying this. But this is all, and it's not, like we said, it's not the best Christmas, but it's certainly a really nice Christmas. And in some cases, it probably is the best Christmas. Some of our coordinators have commented these kids got more than their kids got when they were kids. So, hey, Sam.
My comment about volunteers is sometimes we have too many. Some of the little old ladies say, "Oh, I want to help," and you have to kind of invent jobs. So, when you're saying that we get a lot out of it, that's very true. But just be ready for lots of people being excited and wanting to help.
I think too, if you go back to your churches and ask them how they want to do it, but also in what capacity they can even get their children involved, if they are comfortable with that. I know some parents are like, oh, we don't want to disclose about Santa yet, all that. But I know tie blankets are a really good activity for youth and children, and all that kind of thing. So if you need other ideas of how to utilize volunteers early as well as continue them on with other projects, just shoot me an email.
Yeah, there's quite a few things like Allie. By the way, that's Allie Parker. Wave to Allie. She's our new director. She's actually going to be directing the Thanksgiving feast and Jubilee Christmas and working with us full time through the middle of December, which is awesome. But yeah, some of the youth groups will put together a household basket. So it'll be like a laundry basket with toilet paper and laundry detergent and things like that in there. And that happens off-site with the youth group that's already part of your church, or the not blankets, quilts, whatever. We try to get every child a blanket, or maybe every family a blanket. And that's a good project for whether it's that little old lady that Sue's talking about, or the kids who, teenagers and college students. Sororities, love getting involved in those if you have connections to sororities. So yeah.
And I know, to my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong, there are some churches that have different like knitting circles and things like that. So that would be a great way to get other people.
St. Andrew has an entire room dedicated to that.
Our church has a quilting group, and those ladies provide quilts for each of our families.
The men in these quilting groups.
Yeah, we have a quilting group too. Every family gets a blanket that was made specifically for them.
Yeah, it's such a simple gesture, but what a wonderful thing. And it's not a toy, Yeah. Well,
one more thing. Last year we had our Cub Scouts want to participate, and they made Christmas ornaments, and they were nativity-based Christmas ornaments that were put in each of the household item baskets, and they were darling. They were just so sweet. The beauty and innocence of these little children and the ornaments they made. So some of your little ladies may want to do ornaments and things like that too, but just that gesture of something homemade is pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's also another example of how every church makes it special. Melissa, who does those centerpieces at St. Andrew?
I was going to say, we have a couple of, one lady in particular who a couple years ago started making centerpieces with, she collects, mugs, and I don't know, they're all so very different. She makes them all year long. And they're pretty amazing. And she started it one year, and then she's gotten a couple of friends involved, and they, collect stuff at the, on sale after Christmas and make these very unique, amazing decorations.
They're beautiful. Yeah. I mean, she repurposes stuff, but makes beautiful centerpieces.
Pablo, I want to throw one more idea out to the new people. One thing our church does is we do the night before Christmas boxes. So we do order like boxes from the North Pole. And in those boxes, we put, last year we had a member that was relocating from Lafayette to Florida, and she was a Boyd's Bear collector. So she donated all of her Boyd's Bears. So we put a Boyd's Bear in a box, we put hot chocolate, we put popcorn, we put a book, and I think a movie and other little candies or whatnot. And that was something that the people that are our guests seem to really enjoy. So that was one little idea that we do for our guests as well.
Awesome. Well, I'm getting the sense that we're doing Jubilee Christmas again this year. And what we'll have to do is just keep an eye on what you all are doing differently, and see how that goes. I don't have any concerns. And Maggie and Jada, you were on that committee where we wrote that book. Do you guys have any concerns or think we need to revisit anything as far as regulations? They're pretty strict at this point, so we'll just maybe offer those as an option. Yeah, I will come up with something. Yes, Carl.
You mentioned a couple of times about some rules or guidelines of that things of that nature. Where might I find that? What is that? What kind of reference?
It'll be on the portal. So if you go to,
I'm there now. I'm on the portal for the Jubilee Christmas
nothing,
hosts.
there's nothing there now because we haven't written this year's. So I was waiting for this
Okay.
meeting. We usually have that ready before the October meeting, but I could send you, if anybody wants to see last year's, I could send that to you electronically. And it might be good to see last year's and the year before, so you get a pre-COVID, in the midst of crazy COVID, and
Yeah.
it's gonna probably be somewhere in between.
Okay, I was looking at the Jubilee Christmas host site portal. That's not the same
That
thing
is-
you're talking about?
Yeah, but
That's
at the
correct.
top,
It's just not up yet.
at the top,
It
there
hasn't
would
been-
be
yeah.
a link to a handbook. We have a handbook that we publish every year that goes through a lot more information than most people need, but it makes me feel good to put it out there. But it talks about everything you need to know, what the expectations are, what LUM will do, what you need to do. And last year it included a lot of protocols for COVID.
We can, once those are uploaded, we can send an email just notifying everyone that they can access it, if that
Yeah.
would be helpful.
Yep. All right. Anybody have any burning topics or comments or concerns that you want to share before we sign off? Well, thank you all for jumping in on this meeting. I know it's an extra, but considering where we're at in our community, I thought it was a good idea for me to hear and for Ally to hear where you're all, what you're planning on doing. And I know it may change. So we'll just, like I said, be creative, be inventive, and be flexible, but focus on those kids.
Do you have a date for that October meeting already, or?
Carl, is there a date on that site for that meeting? I'm not on the site.
Okay,
I think
that's
it
okay.
does.
No worries.
It's
Give
I think
me-
it's October 19th.
That sounds correct.
Yes,
Let me verify.
October 19th. Oh, you've got this. Yes.
Yes, October
Elliot
19th.
timeline. And what's the second meeting date? Is that the 4th or the 2nd or
For
Nov-
November.
November 9th.
Oh, it's
The
the
9th.
9th. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Which is,
On a side note, I know last year we created a Facebook group for the core team that was doing the COVID stuff and putting up ideas. Maybe we could convert that into a group where the new hosts could come in and ask questions and that kind of thing.
the group's still there, so
Well, we
yeah,
could
go ahead.
rename it and just be kind of a support system for the new
I
folks.
think it was just called coordinators, so we could just leave it at that and just know that it's a forum for you all to share ideas and ask questions and support each other. But that's
Yeah.
a great idea. Thanks for reminding me
Thank
that
you.
that was there. And Carl, I promise that I will get on that page tomorrow and make sure that it's super up to date. And but it comes in handy if you're ever sitting there going, what's the date of this, or where's the Zoom link? It'll probably be on that page. So
Yeah, I see the Jubilee Christmas handbook. It doesn't have the link activated yet.
right,
So, yeah.
right, yeah, that's intentional. But if you want last year's, just let me know and I'll send it to you. All right, folks, it's 7:06. And you don't have to, what's the line? You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Thank you all.
Thank you all again.
Merry Christmas. And we'll be in touch.